What you want to say about the baby?
Good time, baby.
That is the voice of 4-year-old Jamaria Harris, a little girl who police claim is now dead. Her parents are in jail. They're charged with killing her. But this case has a bizarre and disturbing twist.
The hardest announcement that I've ever had to make in my 36 years career in law enforcement. That she had been deceased for at least a month.
How do the police know she's dead if they haven't found her? We're bringing in a criminal defense and civil rights attorney to help break down.
A sheriff stood at a podium in Aiken County, South Carolina, and said the words no parent, no deputy, no search volunteer wanted to hear. Their 4-year-old had already been gone for a month by the time anyone dialed 911. Not missing, gone. Picture 200 searchers combing woods and ditches for a little girl who, according to investigators, was never lost at all. She was already a memory before the phone call that supposedly started the search was ever made. That's the image to hold on to for the next few minutes, because it's the key to understanding just how upside down this case really is. Before we go deeper into what the records actually show, make sure you're subscribed to the Crime Infinity, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Here's how the timeline was presented to the public. On the evening of June 30th, a 911 call came in from Aiken County. A mother said her daughter, 4-year-old Ovanni Harris, had been playing in the front yard near a chicken coop and wandered off. Within hours, this became one of the largest search operations the county had mounted in years. Deputies, canine units, drones, helicopters, eventually the FBI. For days, the entire operation was built on a single assumption, that a small child was alive somewhere, lost, waiting to be found.
Over the weekend, just as the parents appeared in court to face a judge for the first time. But first, here's how all of this unfolded. So according to police, on June 30th at around 8:15 p.m., Aiken County deputies received a 911 call. Mother reported her 4-year-old daughter missing, saying Jamaria was playing at the front yard near a chicken coop when she mysteriously wandered off. And just like that, a massive search gets underway. I'm talking more than 200 personnel on the ground, helicopters, drones, canines. Even the FBI got involved. And for days, this is what everyone was focused on, finding this little girl alive and bringing her home.
Then, on July 4th, that assumption collapsed in public. Sheriff Marty Sawyer called a press conference and delivered what he described as the hardest announcement of his 36-year career. The investigation, he said, now supported the belief that Ovanni was deceased, and not recently. Deceased for at least a month. That means if investigators are right, the child was already gone for weeks before the search that mobilized hundreds of people ever began.
This is an absolutely stomach-churning, horrifying story out of South Carolina. And it is one that has now taken a devastating turn. I wish it wasn't the case, but this is what law enforcement is saying. A 4-year-old little girl, Jamaria Harris, was reported missing after, according to her family, she wandered away from the front yard of her home. Hundreds of people joined this search, deputies, helicopters, drones, canines, everyone hoping that she'd be found alive. But now, investigators claim that's never going to happen.
The 911 call wasn't the start of a missing child case. According to the sheriff's own words, it was already too late on the night that call was placed. Sit with that for a second. Every flyer, every volunteer walking a tree line, every canine unit, all of it happening after the child, if the timeline is accurate, was already gone. That's not just a tragedy, that's a staged clock. And it raises the question at the center of this entire case. If she was gone that long before anyone called for help, what happened in the weeks nobody was looking? The two people facing that question directly are the child's mother, 22-year-old Michala Herring, and her father, 23-year-old Jamaria Harris. Both are charged with homicide by child abuse, a charge that in South Carolina carries 20 years to life.
According to the Aiken County Sheriff's Office, Jamaria had already been dead for at least a month before anyone called 911 to report her missing. Her parents, Michala Herring and Jamaria Harris are now charged with homicide by child abuse. And Herring is also charged with filing a false police report. But here's what makes this case so unusual.
Herring faces an additional charge of filing a false police report. Neither has entered a plea in this reporting window, and under the law, both remain presumed innocent unless and until a court says otherwise. But the charges themselves tell you where investigators believe the evidence points. Not toward an accident, and not toward a child who simply vanished. At their first court appearances on July 5th, a magistrate judge read them their charges, and in both cases explained that the severity of a potential life sentence meant she didn't have the authority to set bond at all. That decision gets kicked up to a circuit court judge, expected within 30 days. Until then, both parents stay in custody. No bond, no release. Just a 30-day window where the state keeps building its file. Here's where the case gets legally strange, and it's worth understanding why. As of this reporting, there is no recovered body.
Different, potentially challenging for prosecutors. There's no body, as of yet, right? Investigators are still searching, but they haven't found this little girl, which, as we'll get into, could present a challenge. But now the question becomes, how can authorities definitively say she's been dead for weeks if they haven't recovered her body? How do they know for sure? What evidence led them to file these homicide charges? What do police?
Investigators say the search for Ovanni continues, now focused on an area of interest outside Aiken County. In most homicide prosecutions, the body is the evidentiary backbone. Cause of death, manner of death, physical proof that a crime occurred. Without it, prosecutors have to build the entire case out of something else. Digital records, witness statements, forensic traces, inconsistencies in what people said happened. South Carolina law doesn't require a body to prove a homicide, but it does require the state to prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that a death occurred and that criminal conduct caused it. That's a heavier lift when there's no autopsy to point to. It's not an impossible case. It's a harder one.
Homicide by child abuse specifically is a difficult case to prove when there is no body. And that makes it a lot more difficult than there would be if there was unfortunately a child's body who was able to be examined through an autopsy, mechanism of injury, things of that nature. Most of the time, child abuse cases that do not rise to the level of a homicide are easier to prosecute, but they still are gut-wrenching just because of the sheer nature of the evidence and not taking any of the gruesome reality of it as for benefit of doubt. And they need to prove every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, and that means they need to lay out all the facts and circumstances before a jury, which makes it difficult for the prosecution to move through that evidence in a way that...
No body, no confession on record. Just a sheriff willing to say on camera that his department believes a homicide occurred a month before anyone reported it. That's the phrase to remember here. A month before anyone reported it. Because it reframes everything that came after. The search wasn't racing against time to save a life. If the timeline holds, the search was always going to end the same way. A month before anyone reported it. That gap is the whole case. 2 days before the sheriff's press conference, while the search was still being presented to the public as a rescue effort, a local station reached Jamaria Harris by phone.
Make of it, right, based on these allegations. And look, they are both innocent unless proven guilty. But this is part of what he said. I got up at around 5-ish, and my daughter was outside playing. My girl was out there watching her. I left the house around 7. I got back to the house maybe around 7:15. I went to like 3 stores maybe. I was back at the washing machine that was right beside the Circle K. And when I was at the Circle K, I was seeing a lot of police. I did not know that it was my house. My girlfriend at the time, she did not have service on her phone, so she could not call me. So she just ended up calling 911. When I came back to the house, I seen a whole bunch of police right in my house. She came up crying to me saying my Javaio was missing, and I kind of freaked out.
He gave an account of that morning, waking up early, his daughter playing outside under someone else's supervision, leaving the house around 7, running errands at a few stores, and then seeing police lights near his home from a gas station down the road. He described coming home to find his house surrounded by officers and being told by the child's mother that Giovanni was missing. It's a specific, detailed account, specific enough that investigators now have something concrete to check against phone records, store receipts, security footage, timestamps. That specificity cuts both ways. If it holds up, it's an alibi. If it doesn't, it's a timeline that can be picked apart piece by piece in front of a jury. Either way, it's worth asking, why give a detailed, on-record interview to a reporter while a criminal investigation is quietly shifting underneath you? People do it innocently, out of grief and panic. People do it deliberately, to get ahead of a story. Right now, only the people in that house know which one this was.
Been guilty, but the fact that he gave that recitation, very specific about what he was doing. He said a few stores here and there. I mean, there's some parts that could be dissected. Whatever the reason for it is certainly going to be used against them now. They're going to look to corroborate any specifics in the alibi he tried to give. And it's not uncommon a lot of times in missing person cases that you have people who are the culprit or accused who are participating in the search. They're talking to people, they're showing up. I don't know the specific reasons for the father doing this here. We as you said, he's innocent, or he's presumed innocent until proven guilty. But it is kind of odd that he decided to give an interview to the media, knowing where they were with this situation, and that the sheriff said that
There's also a video that surfaced publicly showing Ovanni as a toddler, responding to a family member's voice, playful and small. It's the kind of clip that turns a case file into a person, which is exactly why it circulated. Some viewers pointed to what looked like a mark near her head in the footage. There's no confirmation of when the video was recorded or whether it connects to this case at all, and speculation here does nothing but muddy an already difficult investigation. What it does underline is a broader, documented pattern in child abuse cases. Warning signs are often visible to somebody before a tragedy becomes public record. Mandated reporters, relatives, neighbors, the system depends on someone saying something early. Whether that happened here, and whether it was missed, ignored, or never existed at all, is a question for investigators, not for comment sections. The sheriff has also said additional charges may be coming, and he hasn't specified what those might be.
For at least a month.
Now, the sheriff also addressed the search itself, and he made it clear that they're still looking, but he also hinted at something else.
Our search for Jamaria drives on. We are continuing to put massive law enforcement resources to work to recover Jamaria and bring her home. We all hoped and prayed to find her alive, but it's extremely important to bring her home to her family, and it's important to bring her home for us. We are currently searching an area of interest right now, not in Aiken County. Additional charges may be.
Legally, several paths are on the table. Obstruction, accessory after the fact if evidence suggests someone helped conceal what happened, or an upgrade to murder if a grand jury finds the evidence supports it, which in South Carolina can put capital punishment into the conversation. It's also standard, in cases with two co-defendants facing a potential life sentence, for one side's defense strategy to eventually shift toward the other.
When you see two caregivers, two parents charged, do you see a situation, and we're in the early stages, I don't know exactly what would be argued or what the defense would be, do you see one blaming the other?
That could be a possibility here. We don't know. I do know that there appears that one person made the phone call to the sheriff's department. The other had an alibi as to where they were. And so we don't know what happened. The false report could be somebody who may be more culpable for obstruction of justice. And there could be somebody else who actually did more of the physical aspect of the crime. I don't want to speculate too much, but any situation where you have life in prison that's on the table, you're likely to have people looking to point the finger at the other to reduce the amount of time they may serve.
Pointing fingers, drawing distinctions between who made the 911 call and who had an alibi elsewhere. None of that has happened yet in open court. It's simply where cases like this tend to go. There's one more detail on the record worth noting, without overreading it. Authorities confirmed Herring had recently given birth to another child. It's unclear whether that birth has any connection to the timing of when Ovanni was reported missing, and it would be irresponsible to speculate further than the record allows. What is clear is that South Carolina's Department of Social Services is now involved, standard procedure anytime a child in a household has been harmed, and that agency will be conducting its own parallel review of the family. So where does that leave this case? A sheriff who says his department believes a homicide occurred a month before it was reported. 2 parents in custody, no bond, facing 20 years to life. No body recovered, which means no cause of death, no autopsy, no forensic center for the state's case.